Hi guys, 7 a.m. I'm getting ready for breakfast and all that. I thought I might shoot it, whatever. Still haven't finished cleaning up, whatever. I woke up at 5 this morning and I want to wake up early so that, I could leave earlier and then have more time later on, but then I wake up at 5 and then I wake up and I'm like, and I push the buttons on my alarm clock to wake up at 6, whatever. And I wake up and I'm like, so let's clean. Let's be making a simple and good breakfast. I found some new ingredients that are pretty good. We're going to start with an omelette, then some bread. Wait a minute. I want to talk about something, by the way. I think it's an important thing to reflect on is exploitation. What it means to be exploited, what it means when someone is being exploited, right? And I think a good way to look at it is exploitation occurs when someone provides something to someone else. Say that thing could be merchandise or work or anything that has a certain value, whatever, sex, anything that someone would provide another person in exchange for something, okay? And that because of an unequal relationship between the two, the value of what is given by that person is significantly lower than the value of what that person receives in return. And I think that is probably the best definition of exploitation, because one part of this relationship needs what the other is giving more, and so is willing to give more in exchange for it. And so there's a big difference between the value of what is given and what is received. And I think the best example is, well, as far as I know of, because of the stories that I've heard, was in Europe following the Second World War, especially well, I know about Italy. The situation was extremely painful there for a lot of people, and people were giving things that they never thought they would give in exchange for sometimes just a little bit of food or that sort of thing. And take some eggs, and that is exploitation, because the people who want food, they need the food much more than the person who gives them food needs whatever is given to them. Sometimes things that have a tremendous value, family jewels, whatever. And so that's a form of exploitation, because you have someone who gives something in exchange for things that are worth much less. And in every human relationship, no matter what is business or romantic or any kind of relationship, you will always have one side that it will be in a position of strength compared to the other. And the more you need the other side of the relationship and what they can give to you, the more you will be in a position of weakness, the more you will be in a position in which you will give more than you take. And God damn it, this is... And an example of that you could see recently, there was the story about Madonna, who's like 100 years old, and her boyfriend is like 20 or something, and it was pretty ridiculous reading what was going on between the two. But that's an example that's pretty clear. I mean, she doesn't want him as much as he wants her, so he's in a position of weakness. And a free market of trade between people, meaning that two people in a give and take relationship with no intermediary, no family member getting in the way, or no government setting regulations, whatever, doesn't always mean that the trade, even if it's free, will be of equal value. And in labor, it's even more pronounced. Let's put this on medium so that I don't get an explosion or whatever. Anyway, say you've got the worse the economy is, the more pronounced this is. By the way, say you've got a situation where you've got a bad economy and people are struggling to find jobs, especially, well, guys like doctors or whatever are usually not really affected by this. The more specialized you are, the less trouble you have. But the people who are not really specialized, have high school education, and who have maybe some college, but will probably have to do manual work. They are struggling to find jobs. They're looking everywhere, and sometimes finally they find a place that has an offering, that place that offers a job. So they go for the interview, and you have this one side of the relationship that really needs a job, that really wants a job. He's got to feed his family. He really needs that job. And the other side of a relationship that, well, they need workers. That's why they have an opening. But if it's not this one, it's another one. And so they have all these applications, and it will be easy for them to just say, well, we're going to pick the worker who we feel is the most capable, will give us the most, and at the same time, in a sort of a plus-minus calculation, who will take the less away from us. The worker who is the least likely to join a union, if there is one, the worker who is asking for the less in benefits. Well, probably most of them will be asking for pretty much nothing, but there's this calculation that is made. What can we get from him, and what will we expect to give him? And so what happens is that if you have a situation where invariably the work that the worker, the employee will do, will be worth more than what he will get for it, because he's in a position of weakness. Just like any other human relationship in which you are in a position of weakness, you will give more than you receive. And so the lesson to get from that is not to place yourself in a situation of weakness. It's supposed to get hot, and I don't know if I can, no, I'm not going to touch that. But there are hints, sometimes little tiny bubbles, whatever. And what happens when you've got, in politics you often talk about trade unions. That's always one of the big things between political parties in many countries, what they do with trade unions. And say you've got a business that has no union, okay, the workers are not unionized. What happens is that there's a negotiation one by one. Each worker will be negotiated individually, and that is a good deal for people who are specialized. Someone who's a consultant who has a PhD and 20 years of experience. He doesn't want a union, because if he negotiates by himself, he's going to get more. But so there are a lot of workers, the majority, who don't have the ability to negotiate like that. So what happens is that by negotiating one by one, they're going to have less. And it's obvious. And when you have a trade union by itself, just the fact that unions, you have to drop it slowly, or else it's going to have all the big bubbles, and it's going to pop, and it's going to be disgusting. Anyway, just because you have a union, and the union is allowed to negotiate, and the CBA when it's and when it's negotiated will have a force of law, because in the past the CBA wasn't worth anything. The employer didn't have to respect it. But even if the CBA has a force of law, you need tools to be able to negotiate them. And the way this is calculated is through the years. In the observation that people have made of the labor market through the years, there have been many modifications, gradually often being more favorable to the unions, but it's been gradual. Sometimes a big event has happened that exposed some problem with the previous way the law was made, and then there were modifications, and sometimes new political parties came to power with a new base. For example, Lévesque in Quebec, and it's the way the labor laws have been developed is not, you know, a bunch of people who sat down and, you know, philosophically decided, oh well, I think it will be better to have this, or I think it will be better to have that. It's from an observance with nature. I think it's time to put some basilisk. An observance with what was going on. Little changes were made one after the other, and eventually it led to what we have now. And even then, there are often differences between jurisdictions that have a huge impact. One example I can think of is in Quebec, okay, in the provincial law. If the workers in a business are on strike, the employer will not be allowed to hire scabs in order to fight against a strike. He won't be allowed to hire the scabs. And in Canadian federal law, he is. And so when you have a business in Quebec, and there's a strike, if the business operates within a field of activity that falls within a provincial jurisdiction, then the employer will not be allowed to hire scabs. But if it's something like telecommunication or interprovincial transportation, that sort of thing that falls into the federal jurisdiction, then he will be allowed to hire scabs to undermine the strike. And the purpose of this anti-scab legislation is to place the employer in a position in which his position of strength over the worker will be diminished, so that the worker will get his share of you know, the power relationship that is usually weakened with unskilled workers. And that's the objective. That's the purpose. It's like a minimum wage. You know, people say, well, if we remove the minimum wage, there's going to be more freedom to find jobs. People say, well, if you put the minimum wage at, you know, $8, for example, it would mean that you will prevent the freedom of the workers to look for jobs that are paid less than $8. And the problem here with that calculation, I think, is that there are a lot of jobs that, if the minimum wage, say, was $4, that those jobs would be offered at $4 an hour. But since the work that is done by the worker is worth more to the company than the $4 they would be paying him, if you raise the minimum wage to $5, then they would be willing to still pay the $5 an hour for the same job, because they know that what he does is worth more. And if you keep raising it, at some point, say you raise it to $10, then they might still be willing to pay him to clean the toilets for $10 an hour. But at some point, if you raise it too much, you know, then they're going to say, well, at this point, we're not going to hire, because you know, it's not worth say $12, $13, or $14. And that's a way that potentially the value of the job to the employer could be calculated. But often the minimum wage is set at a level that is lower than the minimum value of what the work is. And another problem that this causes, not the minimum wage, but within a jurisdiction, one jurisdiction and the next. In Canada, the provisions against scabs, I don't think they exist in other provinces. I think they have them in British Columbia. I'm not sure. I think they have that in British Columbia as well, but most provinces don't have the equivalent. So if you find yourself in the shoes of a business who wants to invest in Canada, who wants to open a factory in Canada, and within a field of activity that falls within a provincial jurisdiction, and they will be looking for a good location. Where will we open that factory? And they are much more likely, all things being equal, because there are obviously always things that might change, but all things being equal, they will be more likely to open that factory, say, in Calgary than in Montreal. They look at, okay, what will we get from each province? How much will we have to pay? And there will be a lot of calculations. In the end, the more the law protects the trade unions, the less likely the company will be to open their factory there, all things being equal. And what this does is it places the provinces technically in competition between one another. And the one that offers the less to the workers will be rewarded economically by new investments and all that. And the same is true internationally. When all the barriers to free trade and globalization are dropped in the name of creating new work, creating new investments, new market opportunities, and the companies themselves become more and more by their nature international, the countries will and are right now being pitted against each other, and the countries that offer the less to the workers, less in terms of minimum wage and benefits and all that, are going to be rewarded economically. And as long as there are countries that offer good investment opportunities, and at the same time that offer a minimum of worker protection, these companies will be rewarded. And that's a pretty big issue with trade unions, and they understand that very well. They understand that this is actually quite a problem, and that's why, well, in the situation of Canada, the more the law in the United States is pro-business, pro-investment, the more difficult it becomes for Canadian unions, because they know that they find themselves more and more in a position where if they strike, if they try to use their power, they risk the business simply shutting down, because it won't be very difficult for that business to invest elsewhere. And the best example of that recently in Quebec is Walmart up in Lac Saint-Jean area, and that was, they were in a process of getting, I think that they were in the process of getting the accreditation, and the Walmart simply shut down, and you can't really blame them. You can't say Walmart's evil. I mean, blame the system, blame the way the system works that makes it so that they were allowed to do that, rather than blaming them to do for having done something that anyone else would have done in their place. But because of the way that the law internationally, and then the situation is, I dropped this on the thing so I can clean a little. And because of the way the stuff has been set up, you have situations like that happening. And the legislatures of provinces or small market countries like Canada, there really isn't much that can be done when it comes to something like that. The law cannot prevent a company from shutting down. At least, Walmart wants to shut down their store. The law can't prevent that. I mean, that would be dictatorship. You force a company to stay open. That's pretty bad. It's impossible to do that. And what happens is, as long as compared to the other jurisdiction in which it will be relatively cheap for that business to invest, if the jurisdiction in which they operate offer advantages that are less profitable, and if the cost of shutting down or moving somewhere else will be lower than the cost of continuing to operate within that jurisdiction, that's what they're going to do. And that's the way that the thing is set up. And that's why, all over the world, people are paying a lot of attention to what happens within the United States. People want the United States to be strong, but at the same time, as far as the unions are concerned, the stronger the unions are in the United States, and the more the government of the United States support those unions, the less incentive there will be for businesses in other countries to simply move their interests to the U.S. And even within America, you have the same problem. There are third world countries that offer so little to the workers that you have this whole outsourcing problem. But this is something I discovered not long ago. Coconut oil, virgin coconut oil, which is very delicious with bread. And anyway, I'm going to open this. Yeah, there we go. And so that's why you have often American companies that they sell their products in the United States, but at the same time they get people to make those products in the third world, in countries that allow them to do pretty much whatever they want to the workers. They keep them locked up, or there is little control, especially in the poorest countries, in which the company that is operating within that country is bigger and stronger than the country itself. You know that in 2000, a research institute, I don't remember the name, they published a report saying that of the 100 biggest entities in the world, the biggest economic entities in the world, 49 were countries and 51 were corporations. So obviously there are a lot of things that come into that. You can't just compare GDP to sales, but it does put into perspective when a very strong and powerful company conducts business in a country that has very little resources. They find themselves in a position of power, and the country couldn't care less about helping out the unions or whatever. And that's the same problem in a way that American workers are facing, because there are other jurisdictions, especially now that it's so easy to move between countries. There are other jurisdictions that make it a lot easier for the businesses to invest in workers and who are in a position of weakness, and because of the cost of life is lower in those countries, to get a lot more in return than what they give those workers, especially since they can pay them something that is much lower than minimum wage. And it's a great calculation, and the only thing that really stands up against that for the low-skilled workers, of course, once you are specialized, the more specialized you are, the more you don't really give a damn about that, because it doesn't really affect you. It really affects the least skilled workers. But what happens is that the only protection that people have against that is political will. If you have a country in which the majority of people are very ideologically pro-union and all that, the politicians will often put their own political career ahead of the economic interests of the country, and they will say, well, it will be in my country's best interest to lower the minimum wage and to reduce the protections that the workers have, to reduce the endorsement that the law is making basically of trade unions and strikes and all that. Doing that will be good for my country, but it won't be good for me politically, because it might weaken me in the eyes of the people who have elected me, since I ran on a pro-union campaign and they voted me for that. And if I don't do that, then I'm going to lose endorsements. So the only thing that really protects the workers, ironically, is politicians who are essentially not as attentive to the interests of the country as to their own. And it's a pretty ironic situation, but that's just the way it works. Anyway, so this is a pretty nice breakfast. A normal omelette without the crunchy thingies, and coconut bread. It's pretty delicious. It's a bit watery because I cleaned it, but pretty good. Maybe more of the basilic. Yeah. Whoa, that's too much. Well, whatever. It's really good, really spicy and all. Try this bread. I tell you, virgin coconut oil is absolutely delicious. Alright, just fabulous. Just fabulous. Alright, so you guys should try this virgin coconut oil. It's written in English on the other side. It's really, really delicious stuff, and it's like butter, but it's better. It tastes better. So anyway, see you guys some other time, okay?